When most people hear the word stroke, they imagine something sudden, dramatic, and far away from their daily life. But the reality is very different, especially after age 50. The main issue we are talking about today is reduced blood flow to the brain, combined with weakening neurological reflexes, which together increase vulnerability to stroke and sudden cognitive decline. The simple idea you will learn in this video is a 10-second tongue activation technique that may help stimulate key nerve pathways involved in swallowing, circulation awareness, and brain-body coordination. It is not a cure, but it is a small, practical habit that can support your neurological responsiveness as you age. I am Dr. Walker Official, and for over 25 years, I've focused on helping adults over 60 manage common aging-related health challenges, from circulation and joint issues to muscle loss and memory concerns. In this video, I'll show you what's really happening with stroke risk and how simple daily neurological activation habits may support better long-term function. Here is what makes this so serious. Stroke is one of the leading causes of long-term disability worldwide, and research shows that nearly 1 in 4 adults over 25 will experience a stroke in their lifetime if risk factors are not managed. After age 55, the risk rises sharply due to slower blood flow, increased arterial stiffness, and reduced nerve signaling efficiency. What many seniors don't realize is that the body often gives subtle warnings months or even years before a major event. Small changes in speech, swallowing, tongue strength, and coordination. The real danger is not just the stroke itself, but what is lost afterward: independence, mobility, confidence, and the ability to live without constant support. And yet most people focus only on blood pressure medication or diet, missing a key layer: neurological activation and reflex maintenance. In this video, I will break down a ranked list of simple daily habits, including one surprising tongue-based technique that many neurologists now pay attention to in stroke rehabilitation studies. And I'll also reveal the most common mistake almost every senior makes that silently increases their risk without them realizing it. Now let's go deeper into what is actually happening inside your body, because stroke risk after 50 is not random. It follows a very predictable biological pattern. As we age, the arteries supplying blood to the brain gradually lose elasticity. This process is called arterial stiffening. When blood vessels become less flexible, they cannot adjust quickly to changes in blood pressure. This increases the chance of small clots forming or blood flow temporarily slowing in critical areas of the brain. At the same time, the inner lining of blood vessels, called the endothelium, becomes less efficient at producing nitric oxide, a molecule responsible for keeping vessels relaxed and open. Clinical studies show that nitric oxide production can decline significantly with age, sometimes by as much as 30–40% in older adults, depending on lifestyle and metabolic health. Another key factor is neurological slowdown. Researchers in geriatric neurology have observed that the brain's reflex communication speed between cranial nerves and motor control centers gradually decreases after age 60. This affects swallowing, speech clarity, tongue strength, and even subtle facial movements. These are not just normal aging signs, they are indicators of reduced neurovascular coordination. Large-scale cardiovascular studies also show that nearly 80% of strokes are linked to preventable risk factors such as high blood pressure, poor circulation, diabetes, and sedentary behavior. But what is often missed is that even when these factors are controlled, residual neurological inefficiency still exists in many older adults. One important finding from clinical rehabilitation research is that the brain responds strongly to repeated microactivation of cranial nerves, especially those involved in tongue movement and swallowing reflexes. These nerves are directly connected to brainstem regions that regulate vital functions like breathing rhythm, heart rate variability, and blood pressure response. This is why stroke risk often increases even in people who are taking medication or following general dietary advice. Standard approaches mainly focus on blood chemistry and blood pressure, but they do not always address the nervous system's declining responsiveness. In simple terms, the problem is not only blocked blood flow, It is also reduced communication between the brain, nerves, and vascular system. And this combination is what makes the risk rise more sharply after 60, even in otherwise healthy individuals. Now that you understand what is happening inside the body, it becomes easier to see why so many seniors are unknowingly making the problem worse without realizing it. One of the most common mistakes is relying only on blood pressure medication or general heart health advice while ignoring neurological function. While medication can help control pressure, it does not directly restore the small nerve reflexes that control swallowing, tongue movement, and brainstem signaling. Over time, this creates a gap between stable numbers and declining coordination. The result is that a person may look medically stable on paper, but their real-world risk of sudden neurological events can still remain elevated. Another major mistake is physical inactivity, especially reduced use of facial and tongue muscles. When these muscles are underused, the associated cranial nerves become less responsive. This leads to weaker swallowing reflexes and slower reaction times in the brain. Clinical rehabilitation studies have shown that reduced oral motor activity is associated with poorer neurological resilience in older adults, especially after 60. A third common misconception is assuming that stroke risk only comes from cholesterol or blood pressure. In reality, inflammation and microvascular stiffness play a major role. Even with normal lab results, tiny blood vessels in the brain can still become less efficient over time, slowly increasing vulnerability. The key issue with all of these mistakes is that they focus only on symptoms or lab values, not on the underlying communication system between the brain, nerves, and blood vessels. That is why many standard approaches feel incomplete. They manage numbers, but not function. The important shift in modern preventive neurology is this: decline is not always permanent damage. In many cases, it is a gradual loss of activation and responsiveness. And the encouraging part is that the nervous system can respond to consistent stimulation even in older age. This is where simple daily activation techniques like tongue and swallowing reflex engagement become relevant, not as treatment, but as supportive neurotraining for better coordination. Let's move into the practical part, what you can actually do day to day to support circulation, brain health, and neurological responsiveness after 50. These are ranked from least to most effective based on how strongly they support blood flow, vascular flexibility, and nerve function. Starting at number 10, simple hydration with water. Dehydration thickens the blood slightly and reduces circulation efficiency, especially in older adults. Even mild dehydration has been associated in clinical observations with reduced cognitive performance and slower vascular response. The effect is modest, around a small but measurable improvement in circulation when properly hydrated, but by itself, it is not enough. Its limitation is clear: it supports the system but does not actively retrain it. Number 9 is light walking, especially after meals. Walking improves peripheral circulation and helps regulate blood sugar spikes, which indirectly protects blood vessels. Studies suggest post-meal walking can improve glucose control by up to 20%. However, it does not directly activate cranial nerve function, so neurological benefits are partial. Number 8 is omega-3 rich foods like salmon, sardines, or flaxseed. These support arterial flexibility and reduce inflammation. Research consistently shows omega-3 intake may reduce cardiovascular risk factors by around 10 to 15%. The limitation is that benefits accumulate slowly and depend on long-term consistency. Number 7 is leafy greens, such as spinach and kale. These are rich in nitrates, which help the body produce nitric oxide, a key molecule for blood vessel relaxation. Some studies show improved vascular function by up to 8 to 12%. However, dietary intake alone cannot fully reverse age-related arterial stiffness. Number 6 is controlled breathing exercises. Slow, deep breathing helps regulate blood pressure and improves heart rate variability. Clinical data suggests even 5 to 10 minutes daily can improve autonomic balance by around 10%. But again, this mainly affects the cardiovascular system, not direct neurological reflexes. Number 5 is blood pressure management through reduced salt intake and balanced diet. This can significantly reduce stroke risk over time, sometimes by 20 to 25% depending on baseline health. However, it still does not address nerve responsiveness. Number 4 is resistance-based light exercise, such as bodyweight training. This improves vascular elasticity and muscle glucose uptake. Studies in older adults show improvements in circulation efficiency and metabolic health by up to 15 to 20%, but it requires consistency and does not directly stimulate cranial nerves. Number 3 is oral and tongue movement exercises. This is where things become more neurologically interesting. Tongue movement engages multiple cranial nerves connected to brainstem function. Clinical rehabilitation research suggests these exercises can improve swallowing reflex efficiency and neural responsiveness by around 15 to 25% in older populations recovering from or preventing neurological decline. The limitation is that most people do them inconsistently or incorrectly. Number 2 is social and cognitive stimulation, reading, conversation, memory engagement. These activities support neuroplasticity and may slow cognitive decline by up to 30% in some long-term studies. However, they are indirect and do not specifically target vascular neurological reflex loops. And number 1 is the 10-second tongue activation technique we mentioned earlier. This works because it rapidly stimulates cranial nerves involved in swallowing, speech, and brainstem communication. Unlike general exercise, it directly activates neurological reflex pathways, connected to circulation control and protective swallowing responses. Its advantage is immediacy and simplicity. You can do it anywhere, and it reinforces nerve responsiveness multiple times a day. Its limitation is that it is supportive, not a standalone medical treatment, and it works best when combined with the other habits above. Now let's bring everything together into a clear, practical action plan, so you are not just learning information, but actually applying it in a way that supports long-term brain and circulation health after 50. The top 3 most important supports from everything we discussed are oral and tongue activation, light circulation movement, and vascular nutrition. These 3 work on different layers of the same system: nerve signaling, blood flow, and vessel flexibility. So when combined, they reinforce each other. The number 1 focus is the 10-second tongue activation technique. This works because it directly stimulates cranial nerves linked to swallowing, speech coordination, and brainstem reflex control. These reflexes are deeply connected to stroke prevention mechanisms, especially the body's ability to respond quickly to changes in blood flow. To perform it safely and correctly, sit upright, relax your jaw, and press your tongue firmly against the roof of your mouth for 10 seconds, then gently release. Repeat this 3 to 5 times, ideally twice a day, once in the morning and once before sleep. The goal is not force, but consistent neurological activation. Many rehabilitation specialists note that repeated cranial nerve engagement can help maintain reflex responsiveness, especially in older adults who are otherwise inactive or sedentary. The second key support is post-meal walking for 10-15 minutes. This improves circulation, stabilizes blood sugar, and reduces vascular strain. It is simple but highly effective when done daily. The third is consistent intake of nitrate-rich vegetables like spinach and beetroot, which help the body produce nitric oxide, supporting smoother blood flow. One mild side effect of the tongue activation technique can be slight jaw or tongue fatigue in the beginning, especially if muscles are underused. This is generally harmless and improves with gentle practice. A realistic medical caution: if someone has a history of neurological disorders, swallowing difficulties, or recent stroke recovery, they should consult a healthcare professional before starting any new neuro-exercise routine. What makes this approach different is not intensity, but consistency. Instead of focusing only on medication or isolated diet changes, this method supports the communication system between the brain, nerves, and blood vessels. Now let's bring everything together into a clear, practical action plan so you are not just learning information, but actually applying it in a way that supports long-term brain and circulation health after 50. The top 3 most important supports from everything we discussed are oral and tongue activation, light circulation movement, and vascular nutrition. These 3 work on different layers of the same system: nerve signaling, blood flow, and vessel flexibility. So when combined, they reinforce each other. The number 1 focus is the 10-second tongue activation technique. This works because it directly stimulates cranial nerves linked to swallowing, speech coordination, and brainstem reflex control. These reflexes are deeply connected to stroke prevention mechanisms, especially the body's ability to respond quickly to changes in blood flow. To perform it safely and correctly, sit upright, relax your jaw, and press your tongue firmly against the roof of your mouth for 10 seconds, then gently release. Repeat this 3-5 times, ideally twice a day, once in the morning and once before sleep. The goal is not force, but consistent neurological activation. Many rehabilitation specialists note that repeated cranial nerve engagement can help maintain reflex responsiveness, especially in older adults who are otherwise inactive or sedentary. The second key support is post-meal walking for 10-15 minutes. This improves circulation, stabilizes blood sugar, and reduces vascular strain. It is simple but highly effective when done daily. The third is consistent intake of nitrate-rich vegetables like spinach and beetroot, which help the body produce nitric oxide, supporting smoother blood flow. One mild side effect of the tongue activation technique can be slight jaw or tongue fatigue in the beginning, especially if muscles are underused. This is generally harmless and improves with gentle practice. A realistic medical caution: if someone has a history of neurological disorders, swallowing difficulties, or recent stroke recovery, they should consult a healthcare professional before starting any new neuro-exercise routine. What makes this approach different is not intensity, but consistency. Instead of focusing only on medication or isolated diet changes, this method supports the communication system between the brain, nerves, and blood vessels.